Okay, so today's topic is succession planning and how and when to pass the torch to the next generation. This is the second year in a row that the 39 Club has been given the opportunity to run a panel, which in and of itself speaks to succession within the FIDI organization as a whole. This is very important, especially in an industry where we have a lot of family-run companies and maybe companies transitioning from family to employee-owned. I think this is relevant to everybody. So we have a lot to cover and not that much time. So let's get started with some quick introductions. Let's start with Rob.
Hello, I'm Rob. I'm Rob Bardock from GB Liners in the UK. I'm third generation in a family business. My grandfather started in 1923, and I'm, as you can tell, very old. And I'm a fraud on this panel because I have no answers. I should be with you people trying to get the answer questions.
All right, Linda?
Good morning, I'm Linda. I work for Dahan Relocation, family-owned business. Given the opportunity to be able to lead a whole household goods division in the sales department and new business. And yeah, kind of love the industry, so yeah, great opportunities.
Hello, my name is Juan Jose. Maybe of you know me as JJ. I work at INSA. I'm the commercial director right now. This is a third generation, family-owned business. And that's pretty much it, guys.
Eric.
I'm Eric Lim with Asian Tiger Singapore. 50 years in this business.
Okay, Marcel.
My name is Marcel Jörg. I'm the CEO of Goslin Moving, but I'm also a second generation owner of Pack and Pex, and I'll speak a little bit about how that happened.
Okay, and I'm Jackie Stauffer, 39 Club past president, and with JK Moving. Okay, so we're going to do a quick poll here to kick things off and keep things on time. So raise your hand if your company has a formal method of succession planning. Okay, we have some work to do. Raise your hand if you personally have a succession plan. Okay, we have good participants in this panel to give some feedback.
You're doing all the talking.
All right, so let's start with one of the tough questions then. So by nature, succession should be an evolution of the company. That's what it should lead to. The company should change over time with the new generation. It's inevitable. So what is the hesitation for some more senior leaders to perhaps let go and proactively provide a plan for employees? Marcel, would you like to start?
Well, I think it's natural to, have a personal goal in life, a purpose in life, and I guess some of us are afraid of potentially losing that sense of purpose if we pass on the torch and then suddenly feel irrelevant. That could be one of the natural hesitations I can think of.
But Marcel, you have been part of a plan and took over from your father, and you're proactively passing on now. So can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and how you planned to let go?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the first involvement in the succession of my parents, and particularly my dad. I'm very glad he's here at this convention because that reduces the amount of, hey, how are you? How is your dad? By about 60%, and I only get it 300 times instead of 600 times. No, but he was obviously in the prime of his career in early 50s, age-wise, when like me as the only child, it was an obvious question, is it going to happen? Am I going to take over or not? And so that means he was a FIDI president, he was all over our key accounts. They bought from him, they interacted with him. He was very popular internally within Pack and Pex at the time. And for me, as a rather introvert, it wasn't easy shoes to fill. I never followed the course that's called Fuck Being Humble, like you. So I was worried. I was worried about, what's coming. Yeah, eventually, I think the turning point at that time was when I realized I'm following in his position. That doesn't mean I have to be like him, and the interpretation of the job of the CEO and owner of Pack and Pex can be a very different one than how he has done it. Realizing I'm more focused and I enjoy more the internal stuff and not, let's say, a salesperson. And realizing that I can organize the company differently and fill the gaps on the sales side with people who have the talent and joy of doing that job. So I can do what I like to do and what I'm good at. And I think the breakthrough was when we hired, at the time, the best salesperson I knew from outside the industry, a banker called Robert Baldwin. I think many of you know him. And I said, Rob, I need your help. I cannot succeed and take over the company of my father if I don't have a great salesperson on my side. And when he joined and we saw it's working, and he's still in the company and still being super relevant to the company, then the whole pressure kind of eased out, and it's like, oh, I can do this, and I want to do it now. The fear went away.
And you brought up an interesting point there, like it was a natural transition because it was your father to a son, but I think that might be maybe a bit of a pitfall in this industry as well, that it might be assumed that a family-run company is going to pass to a child, and that might not be the case. I mean, JJ, can you talk a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, when I was basically in college, I had to go back to Ecuador. It was COVID times, and I didn't really want to work in the company, but not because of the company or the industry. It was more of a choice of me wanting to stay abroad. And at the beginning, I was like, okay, I might just stay here for a couple of weeks. And then that began to turn into months. And then I started working just like free, like doing some technology stuff in the company, like working with my dad alongside him, but nothing formal, let's say. And then I began liking it a little bit more and getting a little bit more curious about how the industry worked. And at the end of the day, I began to really liking the job. And that was something that didn't happen to me in the past. So I really felt like I just wanted to work there. I wasn't planning on like having, like passing the torch towards me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the only child. So I was not thinking of, okay, it's going to be me, then I have to take over. But then I came to FIDI, and then everything made sense. Everything made a click, and I'm here sitting with you guys.
And your in, I believe, was technology, right? How that could be maybe changed.
Yeah, so I began just doing some research for my dad about technology. That was like on my summers during college. And then every time that I came back to Ecuador for like visiting my people back home, I will start working just a little bit, but nothing formal, like I say. And then one day, my dad was asking me something, and he's like, okay, but if you want to do it, then you have to go into the office and start like talking to the people to see how it's done, because if you want to really know the business, then don't just talk to me, talk to the people. And that's how I began to really like the job. And I love the industry. I love having that day-to-day basis that it's not normal like on other industries. And what I mean by normal is that it doesn't go by the books. Every day something new happens. Every day is a new adventure, and that just keeps me really active.
Yeah, and I think you said an important thing there, that you and your dad talked about how it might work and what the path could be there. I think succession, I mean, if it's not a two-way conversation, that's not a plan. Right. That's an idea, maybe, in a leader's head, but to actually get that into reality, you have to be aware, right?
Yeah, I mean, he knew that my plan A wasn't going to work in INSA. He knew that I wanted to stay abroad. Maybe he thought that I was just not going to be in the office or in the company, and he was like looking around to see who other people could take over, but everything happens for a reason, so I'm glad.
Rob, we talked a little bit, and you would like to let go. You'd like to, maybe move on to a more relaxed life, but tell us a little bit about your current struggle there.
I was just going to say, I had sort of really no preparation for becoming chief executive. My dad just dropped down dead, one day when we were in Hawaii to Omni Convention. So some of you will remember that, I suspect. wasn't much of a transition. It was, hey, you better pick this up and run with it. I think everybody said how much they love the industry, and I'm still in that situation. I get up in the morning and I want to go to work, I enjoy it. I enjoy the buzz, it keeps my brain active and so on. But I recognise trying to do too much and not, doing some of the other things that people at my advanced stage of life should be doing, really. So I would like to do less. I would like less intensity daddle, but I don't want to pack up altogether at all. So I'd like to do a bit less. I'd like to hand on some, and I'm making a little bit of progress with that, but perhaps not as fast as I should be.
Well, can you tell us, what steps are you taking to try to release some
I
responsibility?
brought somebody in as head of sales, right, to try and remove some of the administration and the supervision of the sales side of the business from my workload. That's still probably a work in progress as he sort of comes up to speed and gets up to. It takes a while, doesn't it, for these people to grow into the job? It's you don't recruit somebody and say, oh, there you are, just run, please. It takes a while, I think, just hand over those reins. But there's progress with that. I've got somebody who looks after much more of the operational side of the business now. But there seemed to be an unending list of things that have to be done as well. So as you get rid of a job, there suddenly seems to be space to do something else. So something else gets dumped on me from somewhere, I don't know where, like IT or something like that, which I know nothing about, but somehow I have to take some responsibility for. So there's a never-ending list of stuff that dumped on you. Yeah.
But I think what you're saying there is another maybe area that we can learn from. And you said you weren't expecting to take over as CEO.
No,
so you had a job you were doing, and then you were doing this job.
Yep.
And maybe having a plan to better release responsibility. Like if someone comes to you and says, IT is your job now. No, it can't be, because I have this. Like this needs to be another position.
Yeah.
And then that kind of activity maybe helps create a plan, helps create a pool of talent.
Yeah.
Would you do?
I could do that.
You could do that?
That costs money though, doesn't it?
Well, that is a great point, and that's investing in talent and creating those positions.
I mean, I think that's one of the temptations, isn't it? To save the expense and just load the work onto people who are existing. I mean, that's what a lot of us do. It's the way we've always run the business, I suspect. But in the end, you realise that won't fill all the gaps. Really, you have to recruit, you have to promote, and so you have to look at the thing a bit more strategically than just let's save the money.
I think it's also very related to the personality. I mean, I know you a little bit, Rob, and you love details. And a person who loves details and loves to know about every single edge of the business aspects has maybe naturally more resistance to let go compared to me, who don't even want to get involved in details. So I have to trust and get the responsibility on the people who do like the details, because I'm aware that they need to be looked at. Yeah. So I think it has to do a lot with you personally.
Yeah, but if someone loves details, that doesn't mean, and your self-awareness, yeah, but that doesn't mean that you should be the one doing the details. Maybe that's the plan. You're creating a position, you're detail-oriented, you're looking at it, you're saying what makes sense, but you're passing it.
Yeah.
I think the worst mistake we can make is trying to keep it all,
Yeah.
because then we burn ourselves out. And we're depriving ourselves of a chance for potential leaders in the organization to learn.
I'm guilty as charged. Yeah.
So I guess that brings us on to another good point, and that's how do you strategically plan or prepare a workforce for a succession plan? Because the people up here, I mean, these are senior positions, but a good plan would involve all levels of a company. Linda, can you tell us a little bit about Dahan's approach?
Well, what we've noticed, and I think every single company has noticed this around the world, that it's really difficult to get experienced people in this industry, people who are willing to do the work, that realize how fun it is. So what we did is take a different approach, and when we look for people within the organization, we sit down with them one-on-one to make sure, what do you want? What is your career plan? What would you like to do the next coming years? In doing so, you kind of create the dialogue to find out what people are good at and what they need to further develop their skills and also to grow within an organization. You'll always have people who are they're okay with being a move coordinator and they want to stay that way the rest of their lives, which is fine. You need them. But you also have the young potentials and the talented people who know if we don't invest in them, they're going to go somewhere else. So we really took the time a number of years ago to start up conversations with people, find out what they want, what they don't want, what they're good at, where they need help with, and go from there. So starting with the communication, setting up a plan, either through training or, just shadowing people who are in those roles and looking for opportunities within the business. What do we need without having to create managers that we're only adding on? Because that's something that we want to prevent. Sometimes, it is what it is in order to grow, but you need to prevent that people don't have the room or the space to be able to develop, because then you're setting them up to fail.
But you can't satisfy everybody all the time, can you?
That's true,
yeah.
but it's identifying the talent within your
Yeah,
company that
yeah,
really wants to,
yeah.
where you invest your
Yeah.
time and the education
Yeah.
to really bring them up to the next level.
Yeah, if you don't have the opportunity, the next job for them to go into, you're not going
Yeah.
to create it just to satisfy their requirements, are you, really?
That's
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's an honest conversation
yeah,
you need to
yeah,
have.
Yeah,
One-
Yeah, but the one thing that is very important is to have actually those conversations.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because like on a day-to-day basis, like we are just worried about the next shipment, we're worried about like the everyday kind of thing, and you never actually think, and you're like, okay, I want to really talk with my employees. I really want to talk with who might be the next generation, the next leaders, and I want to hear them out, like you
Yeah.
said. I want to invest on them. So I think that's also very important for all of us. And that's a takeaway right now for me, myself, But I hope that there are more companies that actually do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best ways to actually identify them, at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's 2 points there, and it's one that, I've talked to people about this a lot over the years, and when we talk about promotions within a company, an answer I've heard a lot is, well, we're a small company, we don't really have these roles. And I get that, but you have to have some kind of stepping stone,
Yeah.
or else if there's no stepping stone and they see no movement in senior leadership, why would they stay?
And go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's also to do with yourself. If you have to look at yourself, what would you like to do after so many years? I mean, I think it's an honor to be able to prepare the younger generation to come in and teach them what I learned and show them what I do, and be able to also maybe in a number of years go a different way. And if it's either a different type of leadership or in a different area, but it would be an honor to be able to teach my teams, okay, this is what the possibilities are.
Yeah, and giving them space to maybe do it wrong while you're still there
Exactly.
in the back to help
To
them.
be able to help and support them and empower them.
Yeah. Eric, you've been suspiciously quiet.
Yeah, I think I look at succession in a different view. There are family-owned business successions, there are corporation successions, monarchy succession, ethics cleansing. Succession is important for everyone, every business, whether you're a family-owned business or you're not. I would say succession, I would term it as succession readiness, because you have unforeseen circumstances. You never know what can happen. So succession is down right from the top to the bottom. It's down the line. Because if you move somebody here, you need someone else to take over the job. And it goes through that channel. I think it's important when you have succession, is people. The most critical point is to identify the person that you think can be your successor in your business, not necessary to be the CEO, even a manager, a supervisor. There's a process that I think every company should do it on your normal day. Switch your staff around a little bit. so that they understand the whole company. But more importantly, when you have succession, let your employee know that, you know, there's a succession plan, and you got to get the people who is passionate about what they want to do, especially in the moving business.
Eric,
Because
can
not everybody.
I don't want to lose what I'm thinking about. Two things, and then I'll let you.
Yeah.
So we're talking about stepping stones and creating those. So you're saying cross-training. I mean, if you are a smaller company and you don't necessarily have all these roles to move people through, you train them in different areas, and that's a different development plan
Yes.
to get them ready for succession. Is that what I'm understanding there?
Yes, because you know, if you your succession, if you put a guy to become a packing supervisor, he's only doing packing. But if you put a guy as a coordinator, he has to know different things. So you give them the opportunity to move around and a job that suits that individual person. And then from there, you train them up. It takes approximately, 2 to 3 years, really, if you want to train a person up to take over the job.
2 to 3 years.
Yes.
Optimistic.
It
It depends on the role, I think.
I mean, we have planned, obviously, KC Singapore Asian Tiger, we are not a family-owned business per se, but today it becomes a family-owned business. It is easier if you have only one office, one country to operate. A lot of you here have multiple offices, multiple countries. So your responsibility of succession plan is not just in one company. You have other offices. So along the line, the culture, is very important. A person in Singapore is differently, a person in Japan is differently. So you got to identify the people who understand the culture of the country that they live in, the way, the habit, whatever the law is. But it takes quite a while, and I think you need to plan every day. Look at your employee, identify them, give them the opportunity. Succession sometimes means the guy might not be successful, and you have to let him know that I'm going to put you up here, and if you're not, out you go, someone else will come in.
Well, that's a good. Go ahead, Marcel.
We have a program that we call Pack and Relax. So all the people in management and senior positions have the joy of getting 4 additional weeks of holidays to take in a bulk every 3 years, because they're not able to log their working time and compensate every minute of overtime, etc. So we sell it as a perk in recruiting and internally, etc. But what it really does, it is practicing the succession when the manager is away for 4 weeks. That means at least sometimes 6 if they add personal holidays to it. That means he's not going to do his emails, not like a 1 week holiday, and like the people will continue to work, and Rob is nodding. And so they really switch off. They have to have a plan of who is covering their desk. And that shows somebody giving the opportunity to somebody else to step in and take responsibility and show what they're able to do. And in addition, you see a lot of interesting things when these people are not there, such as how busy are they really? What are they really doing? What's their inbox really look like? And you discover a whole lot just by basically practicing the succession like if the person had gone, and that helps tremendously.
It's basically like having a bit of a fire drill, right? You have to be. It's a risk management approach.
As well, yeah, which is never meant to be in the beginning, but we realize that's what it is.
But I think it has to be. I mean, succession planning is risk management at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I actually had a mentor tell me the same thing before, that I needed to take at least 2 weeks in a row to step away, to see what the problems were, who needed training, maybe who was more capable than I realized. Does anyone else's company do anything like that? No.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea, isn't it?
It is a good idea.
Good
Sounds
idea.
like maybe it's a good one to help you, maybe Rob.
I'll take a month off. I'm off Duddle, right? I'm going. Not coming back.
I mean, at INSA, like, we don't have a formal, like you say, like 2 weeks plan of like taking the vacation or the program you have. But usually, like managers that are really high up, they do not take just I don't know, like 3 days and then like another 3 days on another date. They usually take like in bulk, and it's usually like a month or a little bit, depending on their days. And I think that's when you identify some of these prospects. You know, some of them, they are quite good at just covering. Others, they cover, but at the same time, they're like, why don't we do this way? You know, and that's where you're like, click. You know,
Yeah.
I'm looking for people to not just follow on the day-to-day of the other person, but like, actually, can you bring me something new? Do you have fresh ideas? Because I'm not there, you know. Like that's why I have people not just being sheeps of doing the work every day, but being like, hey, how can we do this on this way? Or why don't we start changing this procedure in this way? And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then once the other person comes back, just talk to it. But you never see that chance if the other person is not there, because they might not know how to really experience the whole job, you know.
Yeah, getting feedback.
Exactly.
Well, but the leaders also need to invite that and be maybe open
Right.
to it.
So that's why I think sometimes if the leader is actually doing a great work, like they would not have come to me to ask for that change. They would just go directly to their supervisors and they would work it on it, and then they will come up with a new solution between themselves. But that's when you identify who can be that next generation, who's really passionate about the job. And like Eric said, like I think for me, just the fact that someone is being passionate about the industry or the job as well, it's key. But at the same time, maybe they're just passionate being move coordinators and they don't want to go higher up. So that's the challenge.
I've had some of the frustrations as well of identifying. It's not the number of people who can really succeed in in a very senior position. The amount of skills and the talent you need. You're not going to have 20 people in our size companies who qualify. And when you have somebody who could potentially do the job, and then they tell you, "I'm not interested. I'm happy where I am. I don't want to, I don't want more responsibility. I don't want longer working days. All of that." Then I really feel frustrated. Why?
Yeah, I don't really stress like you, obviously, answer.
A very important element of succession, and it all depends. If you're a family-owned business, there's always a tendency of family members coming in. If you have one son and the son take over the business, is one thing. But if you have 5 sons and everyone wanted to be a director, they want to be in the same position, it's totally different. Sometimes it's to get the best person to do the job. And for family-owned business, it is very, very important. Legacy is family want to keep the company the same name, like Ford Motor, for example, or whatever it is. History has proven that most family-owned business go from one generation to another generation. The first year, 70% fail. When you go to the third generation, 90% of them fail. And if you look at the history of the moving business, and as I mentioned earlier, I've been in this business 50 years. I've seen successful company, the succession plan has worked. I've also seen a lot of company succession plan disappear. So it is important for the owner, if you're a family-owned business, to be able to share that information to your staff, but at the same time, a very important element is compensation, reward. Nobody is going to work for you. They know the boss, or he fly there first class, he fly there second class, he go for holiday. And I am the one who's loving working in a company. Young people, when you put them through a succession plan, they are ambitious. You got to share with them and get them to share with you what is their plan. All of you have the same problem. I have the same problem. You train a manager after 5 years and he disappeared. He goes somewhere else.
But why are they going somewhere after 5 years? Why are they going somewhere?
Because if they are in a company and they are ambitious and they look at your company, there's no more position for them to go up. They go elsewhere. It's human.
But what's the problem with letting them see the plan to those more senior positions? Where are we failing there?
So you got to make plan in your company to discuss with them. You know, very, very important. Because half the time, bosses in company is, I talk, you listen. You have a meeting in a room, they all quiet. You close the door, they goes out and da-da-da-da-da-da, they talk among themselves. You know, it is very important. You have to understand the mentality and the mindset of a human being as you grown up. Today, the younger generation workforce are completely different. You got everything online, you can read about it, you can see. It's a changed reaction. And you got to be fair with them, give them a compensation program that they can stay in your company. How can, the word I use is you give some and you hold some back. You hear at the academy when we had meeting, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not sending my employee for training because I send her or him to FIDI Academy, and he come back, he join another company. Yeah, that's the reason they don't want to send. It's an investment, you put it in. But at the same time, you have to find a way in your own company, have policies such that you can tie them down. The last thing you ever wanted is you have your employee going up, train him, and then you lose him.
So Eric, you didn't raise your hand when I asked who has a successor. So what is your plan at this stage?
My plan?
Yeah.
I don't go to the office. On purpose, I don't go to the office. And I have the manager. The good thing about today business is that you can see everything online, right? So you let them do whatever they do. You tell them this is your parameter. Don't cross the red line. And if they're not sure, they come to you.
But Eric, do they know the timeline though of when you're not going to be watching them and telling them what to do so much? Like do those managers that are maybe at risk of leaving know when it might be their chance?
Very, very important thing in succession plan is to have regular meeting with your successor. You know, if you plan, for example, to put a guy to be a manager in 2 years' time, for example, you got to monitor and try to talk to them every 3 months, sit down, have a discussion, find out what is their problem. Because a lot of time, company have this issue. You put a guy in the manager and the rest resign because personality-wise. A lot of individuals sometimes, the word is ego is your worst enemy. You may get a guy become a manager and he behaves differently. You know,
Ego is something
very, very important because you're dealing with people in this business. But you need to have constant meeting, discussion with them, find out. Not a one-way traffic. It's got to be a two-way traffic.
But they need the timeline.
Yes.
Because if you don't, one of the worst mistakes I think we make is that we tell someone, yes, like you are going to be the leader eventually. You have to have a timeline because if you create that frustration and they never see the ability to like pass beyond the ceiling of the current leadership, that's when you lose people, right? I mean, and I think part of that is also tied to, you brought up ego, and that's another good point. I hear a lot, people might say, well, no one in the company can do what I do, so I have to keep doing it and I can't let it go. You're perpetuating a cycle. So how do we tackle that? I mean, Linda, with Dahan's plan, how do you sort of approach letting things go on time?
Well, it's important to be able, first of all, you have to have the open communication about it. I mean, you have to create a culture within a company that, you know, people can feel safe enough to speak freely. Yes, ego is important to get ahead in life, but it shouldn't be the center point. It's holding people responsible for their actions, but also accountable for the way they react and respond, giving them the room to be able to explore. But for me, honestly, if your ego's too big to be able to listen to others, you're just standing in the way of your own development, but also everybody around you.
Yeah, and progress, probably,
And
right?
it's not moving forward. You're keeping everyone back. So one of the most important things is to be able to realize that and make it a topic to discuss. And in the end, it's you have to take care of yourself, but you have to take care of the teams as well. Because if one person holds the team back because of an ego, then you have a situation.
Yeah, and I mean, to kind of have in your head, no one can do what I do, that also suggests maybe that this is the best way to do it, and that the only way to do it, and that's not true. People
No.
can do what you do, they just need to be trained.
Exactly.
And they might bring, JJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and also sometimes you can do things in a different way. I mean, and I think that's something that the new generation is bringing up, you know. Just looking at things like out of the box, and that happened with me at the company. I remember like sitting with my dad, and he's like, "But we have to do it like this way because this is how it's been done for X amount of years." And I was like, "But why don't we don't do it like this way?" He's like, "Yeah, I never thought about it, you know." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, we have this new tool, technology that is helping us, and we have this other one." And he's like, and I am very honored and I am very like grateful that my dad is telling me like, okay, like if you think that it's gonna work, like go for it, try it, and let's do it. But I understand that that's one type of person that is not really controlling about the business, that he's flexible, he knows about the technology, he wants to empower like others as well. But I also understand that there are different types of management, and that's where I kind of a little bit clash with my aunt. She's the day-to-day as well of the business, but she's more on the day-to-day of the moving, the shipments, let's say. My dad is more of the, management. And so with her, for example, it's like I have to look at things in a way that she doesn't see it like a big change, let's say. So like I'm going like step by step with her. So then like making little changes that she doesn't like think that she's losing the control, or she doesn't think that we are going in a just completely different way. Because as I said once, I think that for some people, that company, and mainly for family-owned companies, that it's a little baby, It's like, oh no, I don't want to change this. I want to keep doing things like this. And sometimes they don't want to step down. Sometimes it's time to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that she's still like in the company with us and like helping me and giving me so much experience that's something that we need, because not everything that I bring to the table is going to be really applicable to the business,
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for tradition versus innovation. I mean, there's absolutely value in tradition, but that generational clash can sometimes make it difficult.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, my personal experience that now I do work with her like really well. And now I clash with my dad, so it's like every day. Yeah, it's like if it's not this guy, then it's this other guy. So, but at the same time, it's part of having a really well like family-owned business relationship, because, right, like I go sit down with my dad and have dinner as a family, and then we're just talking about business, and then I go and sit with my brother, business, and then at some point he's like, okay, stop. Like, I don't want to talk more about INSA or the moving industry. I want to talk about us, like family, like personal life. Like, let's try to not mix that up. And for me, that is really hard. But he's bringing that into our like dinner, but my aunt is more like me, like, I don't know, like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., she's just like sending emails like, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that, and then like we start working on, and probably someday we talk about our personal lives as well, you know? But it's more the day-to-day of the job,
Yeah.
rather than the day-to-day of your aunt.
He lives and breathes it. Yeah. And I think but those kind of discussions where you're disagreeing, I think that's the succession, that should be the beginning of it, right? Like your employees should be comfortable enough to come to you and say, I have an idea.
Yeah, exactly.
You might disagree because it's not the way things have been done,
Exactly.
but that's the growth, right?
Yeah, I mean, and they do see the value of it. Of course, like for me, I had some external validation that were like, okay, I think that JJ is actually doing it on a right way. And that's what, for me at least, the Masters in Mobility gave me, that support, that boost of like, hey, this guy, the project that he's doing is really good, so why don't you actually like do it and just make him apply in the company? And then they were like really open, like, yeah, I mean, if FIDI says that, let's do it. You know?
Yeah.
Something that helped me a lot is when we put up a non-executive board of directors with people outside of the family and outside of the company. So you have like, I don't know, some other professions, some other skills, whether it's lawyers or management coaches or sales, marketing experts, whatever it is. And this board of directors meets regularly, and then you can share all of those experiences with them, and they become a sounding board in a structured way. Yeah, meet 4 times a year or something. That helped us a lot. So we keep doing it.
Yeah. One thing I think, another thing is we need to be asking ourselves, yes, I can do things, but should I still be doing that? That's hard. And I catch myself doing it. I'm about to reply to something and I say, I shouldn't be doing this. I mean, Rob, in your experience, are there things at this point in your career that you look at and you're like, I shouldn't be doing this anymore? And how do you take the steps to hand that away?
I think inevitably, given my attention to detail, there's too much. There's things I shouldn't be doing, and I just need to get rid of them. I think we've talked here today a lot about succession within business. Talked about promotion and career opportunities for people. We haven't really sort of touched on the point where you get to where you need to bring somebody in from outside because you recognise the skills, abilities aren't, and you can't promote from within. You just don't have the capacity to do that. And that, to my mind, is an awful lot harder than promoting from within, because inevitably when you promote from within, people understand the company culture, they understand how we do things around here, they understand the history of why we do things the way we do these things. And when you bring people in, and we've had to do it a couple of times with accounts, with finance director level really, and we've also had to do it with IT, that is a whole lot harder than the succession planning, which for in our business has really been dominated by the prospect of retirement and the sort of growth of the business really that has enabled us to offer people opportunities, because there are now, in the way the business is developing and growing, different opportunities come up. There are different tasks that need doing. And bringing people in from outside, is a really, in my experience, is a really, really complicated and difficult thing to do. I mean, Eric referred to remuneration and compensation and so on. These people want to come in at salary levels that you don't fit into your structure, in my experience as well. So you've got another challenge there, and they come with, skills, but no background at all, and it's a real problem in my experience. Right? I don't know how the rest of the panel have faced that. Sure, Marcel has him. He talked about taking Robert Baldwin in, right? I don't suppose he was cheap, Marcel, but
No. It was actually a big investment into hoping it's going to work out. We didn't have the budget for that role at all.
Yeah.
But for me, it was worth the risk.
Yeah.
And we failed many times with other externals that in all sorts of positions that we brought into the industry, and it didn't work out the way we were hoping.
No.
And that turns to fluctuation and fluctuation again, and then people say, what's happening? And it's very hard.
That brings us back, though, to talent acquisition and retention, right? I mean, the dream is that you do have someone internally that's the successor. And if we're not getting that, then what's the problem there? Yeah. Are you going to say something, Marcel?
Yeah, so when I sold the moving company the moving division to Goslin, there was obviously a deal, even a contractual deal for a number of years that then staying with the acquiring entity and to help make it work and integrate and lead. But for me, that number of years that's written in the contract, and for Mark Smith as well, it was irrelevant because it was always clear I will step away and out when I become irrelevant, or somebody else can do the job better. There's somebody who can do the job better than I can, and that's the moment I'll let go and let Goslin continue and without my day-to-day involvement. And that's what we're working on. That's why we promoted two talents that everybody knows in the room, etc., to work on that.
So I have a question. I mean, I understand trying to navigate succession in a branch setup versus a single location is something else entirely too. So and I'm going to ask a few people, if we could look back 5 years, would you have approached anything differently in how you decided to move forward with like the plan or the structure of it all?
No.
No? You feel good?
Yeah.
Okay. Rob, if you could have gone back 5 years.
No, all my decisions have always been perfect. I mean, 5 years is a very funny period in this particular case because because of COVID. Isn't
10
it?
years.
Yeah. Would I have done things differently? Inevitably, yes. I think, you look back and you think, there was a fork in the road. I could have taken a different route, inevitably, I think I'd have done things differently, I mean, Marcel talked about his sort of characteristics. Sales wasn't his forte. Neither is it mine, right? I need somebody to do that level of business, and it took me a long time to realise that I needed other people to do that.
So what can we do to recognise that faster, though, as leaders, when we're not a fit for something?
Yeah, I think you need somebody outside to tell you, frankly, right? I think the sort of non-executive route is really quite important. I mean, I'm just looking now. We've got a holding company board on which the family sit, and I've got operational company boards on which the operational people sit. I think that family company board needs to have some more non-executive input into it, and I'm actively working on that to help with that. I also think I probably need somebody to chair it after my day to stop my kids squabbling as well. So I think that's another issue. Yeah.
Eric, you were going to say something? 5 years back, anything different? If we went 5 years back, would you do anything different in terms of planning?
If I look back 5 years, anything different, I would have gone back 5 years and play more golf so that someone else can come.
You'd need to be retired to do that, though.
I think what is important is, obviously, it's quite difficult as you don't have a cut and dry policy or systems. And we're talking about different size of companies. Some have 10 employees, 20 employees, some have 100 of employees. Succession is important, is unavoidable in anything in life, all right? Don't just look at business succession, family succession. A person got married, something happened to either one of them when they're very young, they need to go forward. So there's a succession plan in there. What is important for business, I think, if you're running a company, is identify the young people in your company first. And then discuss with them, because you can't force someone to do something if the person don't like it. And then give him a path that this is the route, where you're going in a company. So they look forward. Make them part of your company as a sense of belonging. Owners are different because you own the company. But staff that work for you is very important. You need them. Without those staff with you, you can't do it. You can do anything. You can't be a packer, you can't be a driver. So share with them. And most important is have constant communication. You need that dialogue. You need to get your employee in a very, what do you call it, like carefree moment to open up and talk to you if they have a problem, and you listen. Because as bosses, family-owned business people that I have seen, that I know in all kind of business has problem. Family members come in, things change, okay? But not all of us have one operation. Some of you have many offices around the world. We are in the business of moving people. You move someone from a bank, the position, you move the guy out, they need to find another guy coming in. And there's a change reaction, as you know. Similarly, in your business, in your company, you have the same thing. Work on the basis of what happened. If something happened, you die. So you've got to have succession readiness, which means if something happened, someone else fill it in.
But Eric, I feel like if we're thinking about what happens if I die, are we already making a mistake in succession planning? Should you not already have a date in mind, maybe where you're ready to step away and you're in the background while someone else has the full reins? Do you personally have a timeline in mind?
If I die tomorrow, the company runs because I have that plan, and I purposely let them do it as JJ says. No, not everything they do, you
So
agree
who
with
would do your job then? Would your job still stay in the company? Who would do your specific job?
My specific job? I identify people.
Multiple people, so you're going to break it apart.
And then talk to them, ask them what they want to do. You know, if they're going to stay in this company, you got to give them a career path.
Okay.
It's not easy for you to get an employee that works in your company for 20, 30, 40 years. The other thing, what is important
Sorry,
is
Eric, I want to give JJ
get your staff, the older staff, to become a mentor for the younger people.
Yeah, and JJ can speak about mentorship, I think.
Very important.
Yeah, I mean, you mean the FIDI 39 mentorship? Yeah. So yeah, while I was doing all these MIM, so I did my MIM basically during COVID, and then after doing the MIM, I had the project. It was operations, but I was on the commercial side of the company. So then I went to operations team, and I started applying these. And while I was starting to apply these changes, I began to have these, you know, like maybe we should not go this way, like maybe you should try to keep it the same way it was before. And I was like, well, I have all the project here, like, and it was like the best project, so like why don't we just actually do it? And while I was doing that, then I signed myself for the mentorship program. And my mentor was Max Corus, and he was telling me, you know, like a lot of people don't like to let go things, and you have to be, you have to understand that part, and it's normal. It's not because they don't trust you. It's just the way that they are, and sometimes that letting go, it's just too hard, like you were saying. So how can you make them start letting go without them realizing that they are letting go? And that was the tricky part.
Yeah.
So that's something that took me, I would say, like, I don't remember how long the mentorship program is. I think that usually is like 3 months or so. But with Max, we did it like for, I don't know, I think it was more than 8 months. And throughout those days, we will be like getting feedback between each other. And he will always tell me, like, try to look things in cloud 9, with basically just look things from the really high up and see how everything is going, and how can you make this person change without them realizing that they are changing. So, and then he will give me tips about it, and then I will start applying them. And at the end, we actually made these changes, and then like days passed, like month went through, and they are like, okay, we actually did it.
Yeah, Max was a champion of this
Yes.
generation, of the next generation.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and the good thing is that his view about how the family company should be passing the torch was something that it was really applicable for like for myself, but to INSA, you know, the company, how it was kind of a structure, as well the country, you know, the business itself, the Ecuador, Luxembourg, we're completely different, but we are like one of the few or the only one FIDI agent as well, so it was really good.
Yeah. So just quick, we're going to do a quick takeaway so we have some time for questions. So if there was one piece of advice you could give the audience in terms of succession planning, if you haven't started it, looking back, where should they start? Or if you're in the process of it, where is the area to really focus to make sure you hit the plan? Marcel, can you start us off?
I think, again, from two aspects, yeah, for the ones who need to let go, who are currently in the senior positions, I think it's to have a plan and to have these open discussions and be very transparent and to set the timeline into it, because otherwise there's disappointment and risk of losing talent, etc. And that's the key talent. You can't let that happen. From the aspect of the next generation coming in, or the successors, I think, again, what I said, to not be afraid of having a different go at the position when you step in, having a different facet and interpretation of that position, working in your strengths and in your strong areas, and compensating that with other people on the management team, etc. That is absolutely crucial. I think if you're trying to, do the same as your predecessor in the same way, there's a recipe for failure.
Yeah. Eric, quick takeaway.
One advice I like to give when you take away is go back to your own company, home, have an organization chart. All of you have. Mark all the key positions of individuals that are important. And then you erase them completely. Start off with that, because you need to fill those positions. And you start from there to identify internal staff that you have, that you think there's a potential of them coming up.
Yeah,
if not, then you have to go outside and hire people.
Yeah.
Do that first. And you start from there to do a succession planning.
That's good advice. JJ?
Well, I can just speak for my experience, and as a family-owned company, I think that you should definitely look at, what do you want to do with your company? At some point, do you want to sell it? Do you want to give it to your kids? Because it's your company, it's not your kids' company. But I'll say do not push it. Like, if they don't want to really work in the business, do not push it. You don't need the family to be the next generation or the successor. You can find it within the company, and it can be someone that outside of the family. And there's a lot of people that are like really talented, but for me the most important thing is just trying to find the most passionate person for that job.
And don't limit the focus.
I'll just jump in.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be sell it or give it to the kids. It should be sell it to externals or sell it to the kids.
Well,
free.
I guess my dad will sell it to me. I hope that I have the money to buy it.
Yeah, but with future profits, there is models.
Yeah, I need to make it.
Linda?
Well, for me, it comes down to, the communication, and here at the HAM, we try to keep an open mind, and what do we need, what do we want, and what does the owner want, and try to bring that forward for future generations. So, and getting people passionate about this industry, that helps.
Rob?
Think about where your business is going, what the challenges are for the next 5, 10 years, how the shape will change, how the requirements will change, what skills you need. Then start on the process. Be patient. You won't get it right necessarily first time. If you're lucky, you'll get it right first time. it's a dynamic process. Things keep on changing around you. You know, nothing's fixed in aspic, and will just carry on as you hope it will. And if you're unlucky enough to find that you've got it wrong, then cut your losses fast.
Yeah, don't be afraid to change the plan.
And change your plan.
If it's not
yeah,
working.
And start again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not easy.
All right, at this point, we can open it up to the audience for questions.
Always. You always have a question.
Hello. It's working. I'm Jose Luis from SIT, Spain. Thank you very much for your time. Very good panel, very good professionals. I miss, more young people in that panel, like in our side, because you speak, about your experience. Of course, you have a lot, of experience, but after you are not now in our, like I say, in our personal life and our approach and our vision, right? You had your vision years ago, and now it's completely different, right? So I just want to ask you that if you can give me some advice, because, JJ is dealing with 2 people, I'm dealing with 3 people. It's, very difficult. It's 3 different personalities, because one is more creative, because it's an art-based person. That's another one is more like a structure, and another is more like, hey, everything works. Okay, so you have to define, every strategy plan, to convince every people of that board. So the point is about your experience, how you can approach like the board, because we are like very well-formed people. We, JJ, me, or just being humble, right? I mean, we prepare ourselves, for 30 years. We have an MBA. We study abroad. We study in other companies. We like learn, much faster, because now we have more and more information that you used to have, right? So the point is, we feel really like ambitious, like anxiety. We have anxiety because we see that the company is not going as fast as could go, because we know the tools and we want to go really fast. But after you don't really trust us, you say, no, that is going not to work, really, because whatever. Like if you introduce a CRM, for example, it's a like a little thing. But they are, no, because, all of the coordinators, after they have to know how to introduce, all of the numbers and details, and say, yeah, of course, they have to do it. It's their job, right? So you think that, the company is going to be a mess. So I'm the 3rd generation, and I want to know, how you approach this thing, because digitalization is something big. And I think it's your fail, it's not our fail, that the succession plan, it doesn't work, because you don't really know what you want to do, right?
So Jose Luis, if I can clarify, as a green and as you as a yellow, you're looking for advice on how to manage up, given you have different tools in this generation than the managers might have. So how do you manage up to that group? Okay.
Me?
Anyone?
Sounds like
How do you manage up?
Sounds like you need an honest conversation to me. If you're frustrated that the business isn't going as fast as it possibly could, I think you need to sit down the people who are stopping it going as fast as it could, and just say, hey, that's where I'd be anyway if I was in your shoes. Just have that honest conversation. We need to do. Can't we do something different here? Yeah.
I think it comes down to personality again, and the culture in the company, etc. I had the opposite issue with my dad. Every one of my ideas was commented by, oh great, let's do it. Like, oh. And I made so many mistakes, and we did so much too fast. I tell you, there is value in going slowly as well, and one step after the others, because it will cost you less. But I can understand both sides, and it's a healthy discussion to have.
We had a question. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's open? Okay. To Jose Luis y to everyone, must give you, share an advice. I think subsection means two things, two important things. One, confidence. Second, respect. Confidence you can measure with attitude, intention, acknowledgement, and result. So, Jose Luis, please be aware with that. Propose to your parents, I'm gonna run this project, base it in these 4 things, and provide the results. Start in a short project and start, taking advantage of the confidence you will, provide to them. And respect, guys. Respect to the knowledge of the old generation and respect to the knowledge and the new, perspective of the new generation. Take a plan. When we have a family company, we have to separate the corporate plan to the family plan. All right? So we have to take a look after, because I think if your objective, if your scope is to preserve and develop a company and a business, you must be a separate plans. And as you said, communication, listen to people, because if you want to your business run away and preserve around the times, behind the times, you must separate family from company, and maybe get a board, a family board and a company business board. Not necessarily family members is going to be there. And ask for a professional to guide you to develop the plans. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. Bill had a question Bill has a question in the back, and Alina then.
Should I go first?
He's got it.
Thank you. As a current recipient of exactly what we're talking about, I'm sitting on a board, sitting on a panel in a few days in Dubrovnik, in Montenegro. So thanks for saying everything that's been said, and we've got nothing to talk about. I appreciate that. I was talking to another current recipient. He's a son of an owner, and he said to me that, in his opinion, the most important, or one of his most important takeaways, was making sure that the transition of power or decision-making is very clear, to make sure that, as a previous one stepping away, you've really got to make sure that the employees are aware of where the boundaries are. So once those decisions start to get made, to allow the mistakes to be made and not step in to clean up the mess. Let them figure it out on their own, which I thought was pretty interesting, and I've certainly made plenty of those myself. But my question would probably be best directed at Marcel, because when you have an acquisition, like what happened with Pack and Pex, and a very recent one as well, from what I understand, and you've got succession planning kind of in motion already in a company, and then an acquisition happens, there must be a certain amount of damage control, or trying to ensure that you continue to develop those people that might feel like, the big machine has taken over, now things change. So how did you manage that, and how do you see that being best managed? Maybe a challenging question, but let's see what you got to say.
Thank you. It comes back to Rob's point. Everything is constantly changing, and you need to adapt. And when we, to the big surprise of everyone internally and externally, sold the moving division at its prime, when we were clearly the market leader in a strong market, etc. Nobody understood why we do this, etc. We had to, and then I committed to go to the acquiring entity, Goslin. I had to find a succession within a month on the Pack and Peck side, which is now a DSP company, etc. And luckily, there was like a very strong talent internally, which we were easily, to convince and identify, and he was fully on board, etc. So that worked. Also, due to, I guess, luck to have that person there at the right time without having the plan that was made for that. And now, if you talk about the recent acquisition on the Goslin side in the UK, That's not necessarily going to change our succession plan on that side, etc. But of course, things could have changed and things could change, and we have to be aware of that. And then it's all a matter of communication. If you're honest and transparent about, to people what's going to happen, even pre-acquisition, they don't happen from one day to the other and everything is signed. This is a more than a year build-up until things happen, right? And then during that time, you already communicate to the leaders of both entities, the acquiring and the selling entity, what's going to happen to leadership. How do we do this? How is job description change of people that are currently in the lead? And you got to be very transparent, and things will happen, but the people that are affected by change know about it today already, and I think that's the key.
Alina, last question.
Yeah, I'll be quick. In a succession plan, you must have room for mistakes and failures. Marcel, my question is to you and to you, Linda. Were you given that space, that time, that wiggle room and support during your transition? And what would be your advice to the predecessors here? One do and one don't from your own experience when there's a transition happening. Thank you.
You want to start, Linda?
Luckily, I work for a company that has an owner that stimulates making mistakes to learn, so that really helps. He gave us the room, he gave us the possibility to make mistakes. And that's something we did and learned. So you fall, you get back up. And I try to do that with my teams as well. Tell them it's okay, but give them the room and, keep an open mind. Stay in the conversation with them to make sure that they can feel that they can come back to me to talk about what happens, but give them the room to be able to fix it and to learn from it.
Marcel, anything to add?
I always had the room to make mistakes, maybe too much, as I said before. And I think I'm also giving it. So I think otherwise you cannot learn. But of course, the expectation is that you learn from it and don't do the same mistake again.
Exactly. Okay, I just want to thank our panelists for participating today. It was amazing. This is an important topic to keep discussing after we leave this room. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.